Hello, I'm Karen from theneedlefelter.com. In the last FAQ video, we talked about felting mats. Today, we're moving on to the shapes that will form the foundation of so many of your needle felting projects. This is FAQ number 5, and we're answering the question, how do I create simple shapes like balls and eggs? Let's get started. If you look at a variety of finished needle felting projects, you'll notice that they almost always started with a simple shape. The level of difficulty may vary, the style and details may vary, and the wool used may vary, but the underlying techniques remain the same. Balls and eggs are the most common shapes you'll start with when felting animals, game characters, food, and many other objects. The shapes themselves can even be used as a base for your sculpture. I used a dryer ball like this one as the core for my kiwi bird. Today we'll practice with core wool and wool comb top. Core wool tends to be less expensive, so it's fantastic when you're learning. The wool won't be wasted. You can always put your ball or egg inside a larger piece to jumpstart it, like I did with the dryer ball for the base of my kiwi bird. I'm going to get started with a little piece of core wool. This is about 4 inches long. To make a ball, roll the wool as tightly as you can into a round shape. Just sort of pull the edges in toward the center. Rolling it tightly helps reduce the amount of felting you need to do. If I roll a loose fluffy ball and try to felt it, the needles just sort of shifted around. It's harder to tame the wool and it takes much longer to see the results. Rolling it tightly gives you more control of that initial shape. Here's a few things to keep in mind while you're felting. Always stab straight in and straight out at the same angle. If you stab it in at one angle and pull it out at another, you risk breaking your needle. Try to keep your fingers and your hands relaxed as you work. You don't need to grip the needle tightly. You want to keep control of it, but you don't want to hurt your joints. I also try to keep my wrist relatively straight when I'm needle felting. I'm not letting it flop up and down like this. So this, not this. The wool moves in the direction of the needle. So if you want to push the wool to the left, you need to angle your needle to the left. In this case, since I'm making a ball, I want the wool to move to the center of the shape. So I'm going to push it in about halfway because I'm not trying to push it through, I'm just trying to push it to the center. So push the needle in about halfway and keep rotating the shape as you go. And that will help ensure that you're evenly felting it. While it may be tempting, don't pick up your ball and needle felt it in the air. Without any support for your piece, it's actually more difficult to felt it, and you risk missing the piece and hitting your fingers or hand with the needle. So use your felting mat for both safety and to support your work. If I bend my needle, I choose to not keep using it. To me, a bend is damage and a point of weakness in my needle. That makes them more of a risk to keep working with. So if I notice my needle is bent, I usually stop and just replace it with a fresh one. And this is very important to me at least. Avoid poking your finger by never looking away when you're stabbing the wool. Never, ever, ever look away. If you're interrupted or need to look away, put your needle down. When I look away, I'm much more likely to stab my finger or break my needle if I keep felting. If you do break your needle, immediately remove any broken pieces, whether they're in your mat or in your work. Getting the broken piece out is easier if you have an idea of where it went in. Just do it. Do it immediately. Don't wait. And to finish your ball, just keep turning and felting it until it starts to feel firm and less squishy. I was using a 36 gauge needle and I'm starting to feel some resistance as I poke it into the wool. So I'm going to switch to a 38. That helps a lot. I'm not getting that same degree of resistance. If your shape needs it, add small amounts of wool to even out the surface. The small tufts of wool can help fill in empty spots and create a more even look. You can also roll it between the palm of your hands. So this is looking good. I'm going to call this done right now since it's just a practice piece. It's not firmly felted, but it's felted enough to use as the base for an animal's head or a little tiny body. So let's move on to making an egg. And this time I'm going to use a needle in a holder and I'm going to use comb top. So the process of making an egg is very similar to creating a ball. Since I want one side thicker than the other, I'm going to kind of arrange my comb top a little bit so it's thicker on this side and thinner on this one. And then I'll roll it up just like we did with the ball. So I want to try to roll it up tightly, but keeping this side thinner and this side a little thicker. Okay, so I've got this end a little bit thinner. And I want to start felting that just to get it to hold its shape. So I'm felting it and turning it. When you're working with comb tops, sometimes it's easier to turn it in the direction that you wrapped it so it doesn't start to come unwound. We continue keeping one end a little larger than the other, and we coax the other end into a soft point. I normally use a needle holder or a needle with a silicone handle like Felt Alive's. I find them easier on my hands than holding a bare needle. I tend to grip a bare needle tighter because it's smaller and it can slip easily. A holder or a handle helps me keep my grip more relaxed. You don't need one to get started, but it's something to consider if you take up felting as a craft. If your egg starts to get a little bit too long, you can just felt it from the end, kind of pushing that wool back down toward the center, and that'll help you tighten up the shape. Here are the finished ball and egg. We'll use these shapes to make a project later on in this series, but if you'd like to see examples now, check out my kiwi bird or my owl ornament videos. The bunny tutorial is also available for purchase as a PDF download in my Etsy shop. That's it for this FAQ. I hope you found it helpful and it inspires you to felt something, and if you don't felt, make something. See you next time.